Alrighty, it's time to talk about eldritch mutants and why they are so flawed to the point where they're not fun to RP as or interact with. So one of the most glaring issues with eldritch mutants is that they are literally not supposed to RP with anyone but one other mutant or a friend of that mutant unless it's combat. If you have read the mutant guide, then you would know that mutants don't interact with people unless they were friends with them before they turned, and that mutants always either run or fight in the presence of people, which means you cannot RP with anyone unless it's just to fight with them. I have even been told this in a game by a mod when he messaged everybody in the server saying that mutants are not friendly nor non-feral to people. The mutant guide also states that mutants can only be together in pairs, and when there is more than that, they either run or fight. Now, if you aren't seeing the problem, let me put it this way. As eldritch mutants, you can only RP 3 ways. Number 1 is to interact with no one but another mutant, and the few times you do interact with people, you must flee, fight, or make that person leave. Second option is to get a friend to RP with you as a friend of that mutant. Third option is to just go around fighting people all the time, because the first option is boring and depressing, and the second option isn't always available to you. And most people choose the latter when it comes to RPing as a mutant. And you can see this reflected in types of mutants that are RP'd. Because if you haven't noticed by now, absolutely nobody plays as 1 to 2 age mutants, and very few people RP as 3 to 11 age mutants. In fact, I invite you to try to find at least 3 of either kind of mutant, and I also bet that if you do find them, you will find them FRPing because they are hanging around people, which the rules state that is not allowed. And why is that? Why are there so little mutants now? Well, it's because you can't CRP with them because they're so small and weak that you'd probably just lose. So people use the other ones because they're just built for combat. This single issue right here is why eldritch mutants are nothing but one-dimensional creatures with no good depth or story to them, and are rarely fun to RP as or RP with unless you like mindless and empty CRP. Now, of course, the only way to fix this issue is to allow people to RP as non-feral mutants and let them interact with people instead of just running or fighting. But let me tell you why this makes sense in a logical standpoint. So if mutants are basically wild animals, that means they can be conditioned into trusting people just like wild animals. That's why parks don't want you to feed the animals, because they will associate humans with food and will then start coming up to people to get that food. Just like how some birds walk right past you to eat the food off the floor, or how some squirrels might walk right up to people or even climb on people to beg them for food, or how you can get a deer to trust you enough to eat right out of your own hand. So why couldn't mutants be conditioned in the same way? Well, the answer is they totally can. And this, coupled with the fact that eldritch mutants are basically a little less smarter than Hollywood dogs, which means they can identify weapons, create and act upon very rudimentary plans, and communicate with other mutants. This means that they would be smart enough to know that buttering up to people could result in food. Mutants could also learn from other animals or eldritch that interact with people in a positive way, that get food and shelter. And by either interacting with those mutants or watching those animals and mutants, they could figure this out for themselves. Or they could just be desperate enough to try something like that, as they see no option left, such that the 3 to 11 mutants have no chance of hunting their own food. Second issue I want to quickly mention here that ties in with the intelligence. It doesn't make sense for mutants to not pair up in groups larger than 2. They should be able to understand that a larger group means they can take on more people and get more food from those larger groups. And also that these larger groups mean they will get attacked less often. Well, that wraps up this video. I honestly find this whole thing quite amusing, because Chad in a live stream stated that he changed the mutant lore because he didn't like that they were all combat with simple motives and really nothing else going on there. But now, he and the mod team have made it much worse, so now mutants attack people because that's all they can do with them. That's about it. I hope I've convinced some of you out there, and if not, well, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments. Anyways, I'll see y'all around.